So hey friends, welcome to this week's video. This week we're looking at the Runfree from Soundpeats. These are air conduction headphones that are workout focused for obvious reasons. These will give you a little bit more spatial awareness and hopefully still retain some good sound, but I have yet to test these, so this is what I'm going to be focused on this week. Really casual intro because unfortunately it's super early here in Boston and I got jury duty, so let me chug some coffee and then let's try these out in the city. See you in a bit. All right, so we're at the courthouse. I'm obviously gonna have to figure out where to shoot this later, but yeah, I figured I might as well just get an outdoor sound sample so you guys can hear what the mics sound like. I have no idea what they sound like anymore. But when I get a break from that, I will look at the sound sample and give you guys an indoor sample. So please hold. Good news, I wasn't selected, but you guys can hear the indoor samples. From what I can tell, it's better than what we've tried with Soundpeats so far. So it's actually relatively nice and people can hear me pretty clearly. So let's get out of here and move back home.
But coming back to this, obviously they are open ear, so the first thing that's going to be consideration here is volume. Everyday life, I can pretty much live around 60-70%, hear things really, really well, and so far they sound very nice. However, once wind starts picking up and there's a ton of cars around, you got to boost that up to 100, and even in those instances, you may not have enough volume. So this is something you're probably going to have to test out, but you know, if you're just running in a field or just doing normal workouts or just doing it to run errands in a suburb or something like that, generally you'll be okay. If you're in a New York subway, you're screwed, so don't use it for that. So make sure this is the right situation for these headphones. The next thing to think about here is going to be the adjustability. Obviously, it's one big piece, not much adjustable, and the band doesn't conform to your head. It does have a lot of space here to accommodate a lot of different sizes of heads, but as a result, it does not allow you to really cinch in your sound. So while it does sound very good being open ear here, you do notice it being a little bit better by just holding it into your ear cavity, and doing this gives you better volume and gives you better audio quality. So having some flexible wire or something here would have been nice, just so I can lock in the position and get the best out of those drivers. However, I understand why they might do this, just to make it a little bit less. There's just less points of breakage by making it this design. The other thing to note here is that the controls are on this panel here in the back, not on the front here. And the reason why they did that is because this overall structure kind of is necessary. It looks like a lot, but it actually isn't. It's because since the driver is here, you need something to balance this. If this was just one big bend, this would be wobbling all over your ears. But having this control panel in the back here not only gives you a place to charge it, but also gives you a place for controls and also counterbalances that front end so that it's really kind of balances on your ear properly. And so even if you're running, you're changing directions and doing all that sort of stuff, it'll stay pretty locked in and balanced and you won't notice it. In terms of that, I would still have liked touch controls because I think that's a little bit more convenient. The controls on the back here, because they're so tactile and there's a lot of travel for the button, it's nice and confirming in terms of what you're doing. But because that travel is there, you do have to press on your ear. Like your ear is the cushion point to actually get the leverage to press the button. And as a result, you're just pushing against your ear a lot when changing tracks and volume. Obviously, I wasn't doing that a ton, but I could see how that might annoy people. And then the last thing that I've noticed is that through longer sessions, I've noticed that it's a little bit ear fatiguing. So like 4+ hours is when I started feeling that it's just like a little bit weighty on my ear. And that's something that I'm going to monitor throughout the rest of this week to see if that persists or if it's something that goes away. So I'll let you guys know later in the review. Obviously, we want to talk about audio on these because that's going to be extremely important. However, I do have to get onto a flight for a business trip to Salt Lake City, so I will let you guys know when we're over there. Obviously, I'm not going to be riding these or rocking these in the plane because I'm going to be able to hear all that white noise and everyone around. These are not ideal for a plane. Once I'm landed, though, and outside of meetings, I will be using this for phone calls, and I will be using this to listen to music, so I will get you guys an understanding of how these sound from an audiophile perspective, or just an audio perspective. Pretty casual audiophile. But anyway, off to the flight.
Oops. All right, so we're in Salt Lake City, and just get in my car. I got upgraded to a van, whatever that means. But I will say, oh my God, get down! After like 5 hours of straight like earbuds, these are kind of a relief to have on. Even just going to the airport, it's super nice just to relax my ears, but still listen to music. But obviously, some more listening has to happen. That's going to have to happen after work tomorrow. So I'll see you guys tomorrow.
While using these for work, I found that it reproduces voices really well, and due to the open nature, it took out some of the harshness out of people's voices and microphones. While it didn't make work go any faster, it did make switching between my phone and computer super easy with its multi-point connection. I also really enjoyed the comfort. While first unboxing these, I did feel some fatigue, but during this work trip when I was on calls all day, I had no issues with ear fatigue. They just got more comfortable over time. Especially with the open ear nature, my ears didn't heat up like over ears, and my ear canals weren't sore or waxy like earbuds. The band is also nice and let me rest on my neck or even one ear listen, which is a nice convenience for those longer use sessions. The microphone seemed to hold up well on conferencing and no one noticed any lag, and they were also pleased with the tone and volume. I will say that these are not the most natural sounding microphones, but I really didn't have an issue with them, and they were clear enough for extended conversations. Another thing that I liked was I could clearly hear my coworkers around me and answer any of their questions that they may have. It made it really easy to stay locked in both to my virtual teams and my physical teams. Overall, these are amazing for work scenarios where you're okay with some surrounding noise and that you need to be a little bit more collaborative. And with its 14-hour battery life, it can hold you down even if you're slaving away long after hours. Heading to the gym, I found these comfortable for weightlifting outside of a couple areas. For bench press, the band extending backwards is noticeable and did push the drivers away from ideal positioning for sound. They're still serviceable for quick sets, but just something to note. Overhead extensions were the other problem area, as sometimes they would snag against the weights. You can work around this, but just not ideal for movement and range of motion. However, if you're doing anything else like a pull day, leg day, or anything where you're not laying down or going behind the head, these will work fine. However, you have to really keep in mind that these were really meant for running, and that's where these guys really shine. They're extremely well balanced and they fit well around the head, and that makes them barely noticeable when using. They're loud enough to keep me in my zone while also giving me awareness of others on the field so I don't take a ball to the head while I'm mid-run. However, I will say that these will be a harder sell with areas that have more wind, as those will start interfering with the volume. So if you're looking to use these for biking, I would say you probably have to look for other options. These are good for people running indoors or in sunnier calm wind conditions.
In terms of Bluetooth connectivity, you have Bluetooth 5.3. Distance-wise, this thing is a beast. I got through the entire football field and it still stayed strong, giving me a strong connection. So it can definitely get you past 100 yards. The thing that was great about that too is that means that you can really be flexible on where you put this. You can just leave it in your bag and run around a field and not lose connectivity regardless of what you're doing. So wrapping this all up with audio, the biggest thing here that I've noticed is really just volume. Certain tracks, especially if it's not like an EDM track or something with high volume that's already tuned into it, may be lacking in volume, especially if you're outdoors. However, there is a caveat here because if you are using this with a computer, for some reason I was seeing a tremendous more amount of volume from the computer. So I don't know if that's just because it can drive more sound through it. I don't know the technical aspects of that, but just with the nature of these headphones and being more workout focused and running focused, I'm guessing you're gonna be using this with a mobile, so volume will likely be an issue. However, if you have a transition and multi-connect for work scenarios, it'll get you. You'll be fine, plenty of volume there. As we start getting into the sound signature, I have noticed a little bit of difference in terms of performance as we go from more instrumental music like classical music and jazz as we move to EDM. So like something like, let's say, Chopin's Ballad number 1 in G minor. Again, we just watched Your Lie in April. Freaking wrecked me, but has a ton of great music and has a lot of good, obviously, introductions to Chopin and classical music.
That particular piece sounded extremely good. Everything was really well separated, and it just pushed the sort of contrast of instruments in very well. It really showed the sort of struggle in that song. So I really liked it for that. Similarly with, like, let's say Joji's Die For You. Again, more focused on the vocals and the instrumentals rather than a really heavy bass line. So that song sounded really haunting. His voice came in extremely haunting, and it had just a lot of staying power because of that airiness. When Samika tried this, she felt like people were singing right in the same room as her, and I think that just that open ear nature of headphones, those tend to give you that sort of spatial awareness and that spatial aspect that makes it feel a little bit more live. And overall, you really get these balanced feels when those instrumentals are on. Similar with Way Out by FKJ, just the introduction for all of the different parts had great separation. It was extremely well balanced, and there was nothing to really overpower the instruments that were being introduced. I think obviously we started going into a little bit more, nuanced and a little bit more complex arrangements that had deeper bass lines and had a little bit more energy behind them. That's when you started seeing some of the falters of the sound signature here. So for like Zen Zen Zens from Your Name by Radwimps, everything in terms of the vocals and the lead guitar, super forward, like very, very present, but the supporting cast in terms of the supporting guitars and the drums just lost some power there. So usually where it's like a little bit of thump to like kind of push you along, that drum is just not hitting as hard as I would say, but like the vocals and the lead are coming in very, very well. Sometimes when they introduce the bass line, it gets a little bit lost in the sauce. So this is something to keep in mind there as well. And then as we get into some more things with lyrics and a little bit more beat, like what we were playing with a few Burna Boy tracks, but particularly City Boys, the vocals are very present, but there was like xylophone parts or like a synth part that you're just really missing in the mids that get over drowned. And like the bass is a little bit messy there, so I don't really like it as much. It still sounds good, and when he's rapping, it sounds very clear. It seems very present in your ear, but the bass gets a little bit out of control, and it gets a little bit wobbly. I don't like it that much. And then In Pense by, or I Pense I don't speak French, but by Tyke. Lyrically, very enunciated. Like you can hear every word. However, the bass, again, it's just similar with the Burna Boy song. The bass kind of blurs the elements. So as it's trying to introduce more elements to it and everything comes into full circle, you just get a little bit messy there, and it's not as separated as all the other ones in terms of like the Jojis and the FKJs and the Chopans were. Like we started off with that, super impressed, but then it just got a little bit messy. And then we threw an EDM track by Nathan Daw with Flowers, very, very similar. All of the lower energy or the softer portions sounded amazing. Then once you started getting the full arrangement of all the instruments, it just lost a little bit of that power. Things were still very discernible, however, it's just they all just kind of took a backseat when they all got blended together. So just the bass lines tend to muddy up some of the clarity with some of those higher energy tracks. But if you're staying instrumental, especially if you like these with Polyphia particularly, sound fucking amazing, like so freaking good. Like just how all of the strings sound, or all the guitar parts sound, how the drums sound, how all the percussive elements sound, they just are so separated and just work so harmoniously together that open air nature of these headphones just really bring it forward. So, all right. So originally I was going to put some actual music here. However, when listening through, it wasn't representative of actually how it sounds. I don't think it's going to be doing it justice. For reference, I'm using this binaural mic, which is mostly made for earbuds. Stick them in ear, sounds pretty decent. But because these are air conduction and they don't provide a good seal, the microphones here are just not optimized for that. So yeah, I don't know how to test that. I don't know how to kind of get you guys samples, so I'm just not going to include them because they're a poor representation of what they actually sound like. But let's wrap this up. So these are going to be easy to recommend. They performed awesomely for all the different scenarios I threw at it. It has awesome mics for conferencing, even though they're not meant for that. The battery life is dope. It'll last you all day. You probably won't need to charge these for a few days as long as you're not using them consistently. The comfort is great.
They, soften up over time and become a lot more comfortable. And the sound signature is surprisingly solid, very neutral, makes things seem very present in the room. Obviously, there's some caveats here, like it's not gonna have the deepest bass or this encompassing intimacy with the instrumentation, but that open ear nature is just something that's very new to a lot of people, and it's just a nice change up from what you hear every day. And especially since these are workout headphones, these are going to give you nice spatial awareness while still giving you pretty solid sound. The biggest thing that you're probably going to have to figure out is what type of workouts are you doing. Obviously, again, don't lay down on a bench press, but if you are running around, doing marathons, doing agility drills, doing other types of weightlifting, they're going to perform extremely well. I think the biggest thing that I noticed that was a consistent issue for me was volume, so you're just going to have to see if this meets your volume needs, especially if you're working out outdoors in windy conditions. But overall, I can totally sign off on these headphones, and at $50, it's not a ton of risk. I am trying to work on a sort of discount for you guys, so if there is one, check the description because I will put a code in there if that's available to me. However, I appreciate you guys sticking around with these headphones. We do have a little bit more from Soundpeats coming this month, so stay tuned for that. But to my OGs, thank you so much for driving the content on this channel and sticking through with some of these hiatuses. I'll explain that later in another video. And to all my new viewers, thank you for sticking around. If you could, please consider liking, subscribing, commenting, doing all the things that you normally do on a video that you like and love. And I will see you shortly. As always, I appreciate you. Peace.